And sometimes I read these articles where like, oh, people who just graduated from college are struggling to find jobs because a lot of entry-level jobs being replaced with AI. And I'm like, okay, I'm worrying about myself, and now I have to worry about them as well. What are you teaching your kids? What do you think they're going to do in 10 years when they go out to the job market?
Yeah, it's super hard to predict like what that market looks like when I have a
Yeah.
6 and a 4-year-old. So it's going to be the what might change a lot, and even some of the how will change. But I think there's a few things that are kind of worth calling out. One is talked a little bit before about being curious and observant about the world. That remains really powerful. They did this whole school event in my kids' school around like even having the kindergartners observe what could be better about the school, and then like create posters about like ideas about how to improve them.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great mental exercise for kids.
and I
I
just
love
even
it.
asked that
Yeah.
question, and some of the ideas are like creative and some of them are kind of silly, but even like having that mentality is something that I think will serve anybody well as they grow up, because that's a change that you could try to make within your school or your community or your company and so forth. So I think that piece matters. And I think the other one that should remain constant, like there was a lot of energy around like learn to code, everybody should learn to code. And I think too many people interpreted that as like, you should learn Python. And it's like, yes, you can learn Python. That's going to be helpful to some things. But more than that, it's, can you think in terms of systems? Can you think systematically? And the folks that internalize that, I think, even with the advent of AI generating coding, you can still apply those same techniques. We're the ones that were just like, oh yeah, I learned to code and now I'm like feeling adrift because of that. So I think what I hope to encourage in my kids is that sense of curiosity and observation. And then also this ability to think in terms of systems, like how do these
Interesting.
things interrelate? Whenever they got, because of all the politics and news, they were like interested in tariffs. And like my wife had a really wonderful sort of interactive example of like how, interdependent economies might interact. And you could see their eyes their gears kind of turn. So
Interesting.
that kind
Yeah.
of like explain the system, don't just explain the facts.
Do you ever wake up at night and think like, oh my God, where the world is going with AI? Like, because you see all the headlines, right? And all the things happening. Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm generally optimistic, but I'm also maybe a cautious optimism, or like that it's optimism if you believe you can actually help steer things towards a good outcome. So one of the biggest things I want to do coming out of the Artifact experience, I knew I wanted to go work at a frontier model lab. I thought that that's where the maximum impact I was going to have in the next few years. But I really wanted to be somewhere where I felt really aligned with the founding team and the kind of core ethics of the company around how they thought about scaling AI, right? So it's not just build the most powerful AI you possibly can. It's also dedicate effort to understanding how these models work and how we can control them and how we can responsibly scale them. And so there's definitely, inside Anthropic and outside a lot of conversations around like, well, this could be really positive for humanity. It also could go quite badly. And there's going to be economic impacts. There's going to be labor impacts. There's models that we don't understand yet and how they scale. So I wanted to be somewhere where we were also asking and working on those questions alongside the, more purely like, let's just make the models
Yeah.
really good.
So do you think we're going to have universal basic income at some stage? And would companies like Anthropic sponsor it or?
Yeah, I think that like how we help society navigate is very much an open question. I think that the big open question that we'll also have to tackle is where do people draw meaning from in a place where not everybody has to work anymore? Like what is the source of both meaning and challenges? And is it, finding ways in which people stay engaged? Is it that a lot of people will be entrepreneurial? As you mentioned, not everybody is going to have that kind of drive. And so for those folks, what is the community that they find? What is their personal challenge that they find even beyond that retains that meaning?
What do you think?
I think, I look to sports as a kind of an interesting example where we draw a lot of meaning and sort of like high stakes from an environment that is actually completely fabricated. And so not everything should be exactly like sports, but whether it's, who's contributing the most to their city or their community, or who's like mastered this particular thing, or even artistic pursuits like, getting really into art or music or something like that. I find inspiration in those fields, and maybe more people will draw meaning from those kinds of pursuits where the yardstick is not necessarily how much money did you make, or is your company at the top of the leaderboard, but more around, okay, I have some personal yardstick that I'm working
like
towards.
a hobby.
Yeah.
That sounds like a dream life, right? When you can just focus on your hobby and have all the basics.